now we can't travel, do you think trade shows are still going to go ahead in the future?
Well, yes, they will. Will they be the same is the question. I doubt it. I think there's a lot of pressure, not just from a travel point of view in terms of the cost and time being away, but also the environmental impact of hundreds of thousands of people traveling to a place and stuff being thrown away en masse at the end of a show. I think people need to speak to people and meet people, right? I mean, we've all done it. We've had nice times when we've traveled to Germany for well, especially on Valentine's Day, that was particularly nice to go to the user group meeting. And things like SVG, DPP, and HPA, I think they hold a huge amount of value because they're more curated, smaller events with a bit more sort of trusted content as to what's going on. I think NAB and IBC will certainly go ahead. They have a valuable place in our industry, but I just do not see the same amount of expenditure space being taken. I think that those events will need to be a lot smarter because ultimately building new relationships doesn't happen on Zoom. There's no way. You getting in touch with people these last 2 years with all of the digital noise has been very difficult. And of course, when we go to trade shows, we all arrange meetings because you don't rely on people walking by. But serendipity and people walking on your stand at the right time can and does generate revenue. And that can then lead to more revenue. So yes, they have a place. Will they be the same? No. That's the vote from Nick Pearce. And over to our friend in Germany.
Yeah, so I haven't been to a trade show for 2 years now. I think, Nick, you have been to one at least.
Yes.
What we miss and what also our customers are missing is the personal contact. It's not about seeing the latest and greatest features, software. That there are tons of tools how we can share our screen and present this stuff, but what's really missing is the personal contact. It's not, it's great to be at the booth, but what's really important at a trade show, I think, is what happens after this. Going out with people, having dinners, having drinks. That's where you have your personal relationships to others and you get the real news and you make the much more important context than you usually make during the day. So will trade shows stay? I think yes, but much more for the relationship part of the business, not so much for looking at screens together. I don't need to fly anywhere to look at the screen, but to meet someone, I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I think there's two things there. I think number one, on the technology piece, and we were coming to this point before the end of the pandemic, where we were realizing that the ROI wasn't that great because the halls were getting bigger, the numbers were increasing, but they certainly weren't increasing down all the aisles. And every show you have to announce or release something. Well, it just doesn't work like that anymore. You end up sort of trying to be creative about what you're releasing for NAB or what you're releasing for IBC or Satis or SVG. And the reality is we've got, yes, we have rapid iterations of how we develop, but in terms of a strategic roadmap, it's typically a once a year or once every 18 months where we're developing something that's so key and everything else is point. So then you just have these little bits of sub-interesting conversations to have about what's new. Whereas you're right, you could show that in any medium you want. And coming back to the people thing, obviously for me, IBC is, NAB, the events I look forward to most is the 4K for charity run, because that's a good social thing to do with people and you get to meet lots of people. At IBC, it's drinking the terrible beer on your stand. However, coming and having the amazing coffee that you always have. And the Welsh evening that we have in our booth. And why? Because it's where people congregate and have more of an informal discussion and get to learn about each other more and have the real conversations, rather than one person demoing with a screen up there with 12 to 15 people behind them. Nobody can really hear you apart from the two people here. And yeah, as you mentioned, I went to a show. I went to Satis in Paris with Ivory. What a fantastic event. It just meeting people again, re-engaging, rebuilding relationships. In all honesty, had been tailing off over 2 years, because unless you're in people's faces, you don't exist, number one. And when you're a company, a small and medium-sized company, you can't build an ecosystem like, you know, an Adobe Max or AWS Invent. So we have to work out different ways of reaching our audience, and one of those is absolutely in person. So yes, big fan of trade shows. I know that my LinkedIn posts that maybe don't come across that way, but I'm a big fan of effective trade shows that are short, sweet, and do focus more on the networking than the rest.